You walk into the room wearing something new, or maybe you're just carrying the heavy weight of a long day. You start to speak, expecting him to glance up, to meet your gaze, to acknowledge that you exist in the same space. But his eyes stay anchored to the glass screen in his hand. He mumbles a half-hearted response, his attention never wavering. It's not a fight, it's not an argument, but in that tiny, quiet second, you feel something inside you turn cold. You realize you've become completely invisible to the one person who is supposed to see you clearest. If you're living with this silent absence, stay with me. This isn't just about a distracted partner. This is a deep, quiet emergency that millions of couples walk right past every day until the gap between them becomes too wide to cross. Let's talk about Sarah, 38, married 12 years, beautiful life on paper. She told me that the loneliness didn't hit her when they argued. It hit her in the kitchen on a Tuesday morning. She was standing by the counter, holding a cup of coffee, and her husband walked straight past her, his eyes locked on his phone, looking right through her as if she were made of air. He didn't hate her. He wasn't having an affair. But she realized that somewhere along the line, they had transitioned from lovers to roommates, and then from roommates to ghosts. Psychologists call this the illusion of proximity. You share a bed, a mortgage, a calendar, and 2 children. You sit on the same sofa every evening, but you are light years apart. When physical proximity replaces active emotional connection, we stop looking. Human beings have a fundamental need to be mirrored. When we look at the person we love, we want to see our value reflected in their eyes. When that gaze disappears, our brains process it as a threat. It triggers a slow, aching grief that is incredibly difficult to explain to anyone else. Sign 1. The transition from active to passive presence. The first sign is the transition from active to passive presence. When you speak, he nods, but his eyes never shift to yours. He is physically present, but emotionally checked out. The small table lamp of connection in your home is dimming, casting longer, colder shadows across the room. Sign 2. The death of micro-interactions. The second sign is the complete death of micro-interactions. These are the split-second touches when passing in the hallway, the brief shared look when someone says something funny on television, the quiet, lingering glance when one of you walks through the door. When these micro-interactions dry up, the relationship begins to starve. Sign 3. Safe-only conversations. The third sign is the shift to safe-only conversations. You talk about the electricity bill, the school schedule, the weekend grocery list, but you never talk about what you're afraid of, what you're dreaming of, or how you actually are. The language of logistics replaces the language of intimacy. So, why does this happen? In most cases, it's not because the love has died. It's because of emotional fatigue and sensory overload. In our modern, high-stimulus world, his brain is constantly chasing easy dopamine from screens. Glancing at a screen requires zero emotional labor. Looking at you, sensing your needs, and engaging in deep connection requires energy he might feel too drained to give. But when he stops looking at you, it triggers your own deep-seated fears. You begin to ask, am I no longer attractive? Am I boring? Have I lost my worth? This is what we call the mirror effect. You begin to view yourself through the lens of his neglect. Here is the turn. The cycle only breaks when you stop chasing his gaze and start reclaiming your own focus. When Sarah realized she was disappearing, she stopped pleading for attention. Instead, she stepped out of the shadow. She began to focus on her own light, her own passions, and her own self-worth. You cannot force someone else to look at you by standing in front of them and begging. You can only rebuild your own radiant energy. Sometimes, when you step out of the cycle of chasing, it creates a powerful shift. When you stop chasing, they finally realize how far away you've actually moved. Only then do they look up. This quiet, painful shift is the core theme of my book, The Mirror Effect. You're the common denominator. If you felt a painful pang of recognition reading this, you are not alone, and it doesn't mean your marriage is over. It just means it's time to change how the space is lit. Tell me in the comments below, have you felt this shift in your own life? How do you handle the moments when you feel invisible? I read and reply to every single story shared. Our next series, Mirror Effect, dives deeper into reclaiming your radiance when a partner has checked out. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.